Epilogue. "I thought you said you wanted a simple ceremony," Keith's father said as he picked his way down the rocky path. "Haven't you ever heard of an aisle?" "It gets better over there," Keith said, pointing to the tree as he helped his dad and Vivian down the steep slope. However, even the happiness in him snagged when he caught sight of Maggie, standing with the children under the tree waiting for them. The falls beyond sang with the fresh rain that had fallen the night before. Washed clean, the scene was so perfect the fact that God had created it was the only logical conclusion anyone could have surmised. The ground leveled out, and Keith let them go to travel on their own. "Oh, Conrad, this is beautiful," Vivian exclaimed. "I didn't even know this was here." His father was equally stunned. "I'd forgotten that it was." Stepping from their presence, Keith walked over to Maggie. With Peter and Isabella gazing up at them from her side, he put his arms around her. "I didn't know it was possible to feel like this," he whispered to her. His smile shone from the depths of his heart as he took in the soft gaze, the gentle face, yes, even the new gold-toned glasses that he'd accepted so reluctantly. He loved them all because he loved her. "You ready?" she asked, gazing up at him. "More than." Maggie's hand stayed in Keith's as they turned to the preacher. If there was an ounce more joy in her, she felt like she would burst right open. "Keith and Maggie, have you come here freely and without reservation to declare your love before God and man?" "We have." Her voice mingled right into his, harmony personified. The preacher motioned for them to look at each other, and Maggie had the feeling that she was falling more in love with each passing second as he held her with his gaze. As the preacher said the words, Keith said them to her, and his voice blended with the melody of the falls. "I, Keith, take you, Maggie, to be my lawful wedded wife. I promise to be true to you in good times and in bad, in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer. I will love you and honor you all the days of my life." Her smile drifted through her heart to her eyes and right to him. "I, Maggie, take you, Keith, to be my lawful wedded husband. I promise to be true to you in good times and in bad, in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer. I will love you and honor you all the days of my life." "The rings, please." Keith let her hand go to reach into his pocket. He gave the rings to the preacher and took not a second more to have her hands in his once again. The preacher blessed the rings and gave Keith the simple gold band. "Maggie, take and wear my ring as a sign of my love and fidelity, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit." Her hands were shaking so badly, Maggie was afraid she would drop his, but she managed to get it from the preacher's hand onto Keith's finger. However, even when it was on, the emotion gripped her, and she wasn't at all sure she could get the words out. However, she looked at him, and his smile flowed through her spirit. "Keith, take and wear my ring as a sign of my love and fidelity, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit." She slid the ring to his knuckle, and he slid it all the way on without ever dropping her gaze from his. A breath, and his hands were once again supporting hers. "Now, by the powers vested in me by the state of Texas," the preacher said, "I now pronounce you man and wife. Keith, you may kiss your bride." Maggie's heart filled to overflowing as he took her in his arms and brushed his lips to hers. One kiss and then one more. He backed up and then with a laugh swept her up once more and kissed her soundly. One thing was for sure, being with him would never be boring. When he finally let her go enough to put air between them, wonder was in his eyes. "May I present to you Mr. and Mrs. Keith Ayer." With his arm securely around her, Keith hugged the moment to them. The others clapped, and then his father stepped up to them. Maggie, Keith, I probably should wait until the reception later, but—" He looked out to the falls, and when he looked back to them, there were tears in his eyes. "I want you to know I have taken the liberty of setting up 2 foundations to be run by the 2 of you. One, run by Maggie for the benefit of the foster care system, is to be called the James and Christina Montgomery Foundation. It will be seeded with $10 million and will no doubt benefit many of the children Peter prays for every night." Speechless, Maggie looked at Keith, who was equally stunned. "And Keith," his father looked at him, "I do not know who you are meant to help in this world. So, I have left the exact mission of the Bonnie Ayer Foundation open-ended. I do know, however, that you will do the right thing with it." Tears flowed down the old man's cheeks as he pulled them into a hug. "God bless you both." "Keith!" The voice from the rocks crashed through the celebration. "Keith! Keith! Maggie!" Stumbling down the path came Jamie with Tanner right behind her. She had a cell phone up in the air. I know, but this call just came in, and I knew you would want to take it." Maggie's gaze went to Keith as he took the cell phone from Jamie. "Hello?" His gaze traced down to her. "Yes, this is Keith Ayer." The pause set her pulse racing as she tried to figure out what was going on. "Already?" He looked at her, and she read every word. Stunned disbelief smashed into her. "Already?" Yes, ma'am. We can be there tomorrow morning. Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you, ma'am." He squeezed Maggie to him as he beeped the phone off. Love surged through her like a gigantic fountain. After a moment for just the 2 of them to enjoy the news, his gaze swept over the others and then down to Maggie in confirmation. "Well, we were going to wait to tell you this, but I guess it's kind of late now." Her gaze stayed on him as love so strong it swept the rest of the world from her gushed through her. "We applied to be foster parents, and, well," he looked down at her again. "They have a little girl they want to place with us in the morning." Ohs and gasps crisscrossed the little group. "It was a little unconventional," Keith said, gazing at Maggie, who was lost in his words and his eyes. "But they pulled some strings, and it's for real. Elisa Marie will be with us by tomorrow night." She let out a long breath as Keith turned to her once again and pulled her into his embrace. Never could Maggie have guessed she could feel for another person what she felt for him at that moment. They were together. They were a team, and deep in her heart, she knew this moment had been in God's plan from the very beginning. God had taken everything life had thrown at them and stitched something very, very good from it. She now had a husband and a family, and tomorrow she would be the bridge for a little girl to learn that even life's trials aren't the end of the story if you trust God to open the doors you were meant to walk through. Somehow, she had always known that to be true, and as Keith hugged her to him once again, any questions that had remained on that count faded away forever. For it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not from yourselves, it is the gift of God. Ephesians 2:8. This has been Deep in the Heart, written by Staci Stallings. Narrated by Becky Dowdy of Brave Hearts Audiobook Productions. Copyright 2010 by Staci Stallings. Production copyright 2014 by Staci Stallings.
Like and subscribe to the Staci Stallings YouTube channel so you never miss a second of the story.